Welcome to another episode of Embracing Your Season. I'm your host, Paige Klingenpeel. We are so excited that you're joining us today. In fact, we have a very special show. My producer, Mike Segovia, is joining me, and we're going to have an amazing conversation on sports mom rage. That's right, friends. I know you've seen it. I know you've heard about it. Well, it is also something that I occasionally partake in as well. But Mike's going to be my counselor today, and he's going to tell me about all the things that I shouldn't do. So let's hear from him. Mike, what about this topic today?
Oh my gosh, Paige, it's so great to be here. I'm so excited, and I can totally relate because, oh my gosh. Okay, first, before
you
we
have
get
your own
into
story
this,
then.
I have my story, but I have to know how the weather is in Indiana because here in Colorado Springs right now, it's nothing short of amazing. It's 73 degrees, the sun is shining, and there's a small, brisk wind. And I got to tell you, it smells like summer, Paige.
Ooh, I'm feeling that right now in Northeast Indiana, which is where I'm at. It is about 80 degrees. In fact,
Wow.
I want to point out the Indiana thing in the corner here. My daughter made that. How cute is
Nice.
that? And for those
Nice.
that are joining us on the podcast, what you're missing out right now on is seeing my new studio. My husband is amazing. He created this studio in our basement. And so today is the first day. So definitely check that out on the Homeward YouTube channel so you get to see all the beautiful things I decorated here and there, though that's probably going to change. There was a picture frame that had, like the original picture in it of like random strangers. And I thought,
Yeah. Oh, I love
man,
those.
I probably should change that out. Yeah. You think? I mean, I'm the type too where I go on people's shows and I look at that. I'm like, I'm in the
totally.
details. I'm seeing what books are they reading? What pictures do they have? So I had to change it out before the show. But yeah, we are loving it in Indiana right now. It's full summer for us.
That's awesome. And another quick note about those pictures in the frames. Usually those families are like gorgeous. So not that my family's not, but I just love to leave those photos in the frame.
So that's not
just
creepy
me.
at all. People don't come in
No.
your house and be like, Mike, what are these pictures? You don't even know these people. Or do you create narratives? You're like, here's this family. I knew them back in the day. Man, they are life changers, world changers. Like you just come up with the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. I just changed the narrative. Paige, okay. What a show. I know we're going to talk about mom rage, and you and I have discussed this in the past of some of your situations of being a soccer mom.
That's one way to say it. Yep.
Yeah, I've got to tell you a story. Okay, so my son, since he was 3 years old, since he was in third grade, loved playing football. As soon as we put a football in his hand, he took the field, he scored a touchdown first play. That was it. That's what he wanted to do. So right now he is a sophomore in college on the football field, and he's playing college football, which is awesome. Well, to get to that journey, you have to go to a lot of other things to get there. YMCA flag football, then junior high football, then high school, of course. Well, in his early years of football, he was in fifth grade, I believe, and he was playing with the team. And I was a spectator on the sidelines. They didn't have like benches or whatever. You just bring the pull-out chairs. You know about that, Paige.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
all the time.
You set them up and you sit on the field. And so that's what we did. Well, I could never sit down. I was always pacing the sidelines. I felt like I was one of the coaches. And so this one
Or
play,
an animal in the zoo, by the way. They pace as well. I don't know if you made that correlation.
Well, if you saw the way I acted, you would think the same thing.
Oh, there was a correlation. Okay. Let me hear it.
Anywho, there was a particular game in fifth grade where they kicked the ball to my son. So he takes it from the goal line. He's running out. Then he gets tackled after making probably like a 50-yard return. All of a sudden, a flag is thrown, and they called a penalty on my son for like spearing the tackler. And I absolutely lost my mind. I mean, Paige, I started screaming from the side, that's the worst call ever. And so the ref looks over at me and points towards the sideline and goes, that's enough of you. I said, no, it's not. And I had a few choice words from him. And I pretty much told him that he needed to keep his regular job and quit this job.
Okay.
I was reprimanded somewhat and not in so many terms asked to kind of sit back or asked to stop or I'd have to leave. And so, anyways, we got through all that. We got through the game.
And that was fifth grade, by the way. So it was like super competitive. You were, I mean, high paced, high pressure games, obviously.
Paige, can you imagine the drive home? It's me, my wife, my daughters, and my son. We're in the car, and it's just quiet. Paige,
Well, I'm
it's just
sure.
quiet.
What do you say?
And then I said to myself, "What is wrong with me?" Paige, I turn into a completely different person on the field. I need help.
Yes. Yes. And that's the thing. That's what we're talking about today, right? Is like these normal, well, normal is relative, I guess, but it's like
Right.
these people, men and women, both are just calm throughout their normal day to day. And then all of a sudden there is something about youth sports that brings up a rage. And that's the only thing I can describe is like, it's
yeah.
not just frustration. It's not just irritability. Like it's full on rage and it's increasing.
Totally.
In our nation. Like we're seeing it all over. Everybody has a phone, so now they're videotaping it, and it's just embarrassing. It's awful.
And I've seen, Paige, that there has been an increase in the conflict at these youth sporting events. I mean, Paige, you're on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and such, and you even TikTok. You see the videos of some parent going absolutely nuts. I mean, I saw one a while back about some parent going after the umpire. So we know that there's been an increase in conflict in these sporting events. Paige, why do you think that has happened now? Why has it increased so much in these days?
Yeah. I think as a culture as a whole, we are just becoming more offendable. Like we lack so much grace for one another. Like we completely disregard the fact that we make mistakes or that we're fallible, and yet we project onto other people that they aren't capable or they shouldn't be making mistakes or having bad days in themselves. So it's like we are constantly offendable by people. I think social media and technology has also, we rewired our brains in some ways. It's created this. What's with the fireworks? Do you see fireworks?
It's created these fireworks.
That's amazing. Obviously, this is a big topic. What in the world?
YouTube
Did
people,
you see them?
Did you see those fireworks? That was amazing.
I don't know where that
was an
came from,
effect.
but it was apparently
Yes.
really amazing. So technology is rewiring our brains so that when we interact with people face to face, we have lost some of the ability to communicate face to face. It's that we're so used to having conversations over email and text messages and even phone calls that we forget that these people have feelings and their feelings are valid. And then I think the ultimate extreme is just parents are super protective of their kids anymore. Like I know for me, my husband gives me a hard time about this, but like I wouldn't say that I'm paranoid, but I'm also just very aware of where my kids are. And if they want to go around the neighborhood and fish, right now my boys are big into fishing and they're like, well, I want to go until it's 9:30. Well, sunset's like 9:15 right now. I'm like, I don't know what if someone takes you? Like, what if you hurt yourself? What if that's my brain. And my husband's like, let them be kids. They're fine. And so I think this sense of we are just overprotecting our kids as well is instigating some of these tensions and fights that we see online.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, there's that social media aspect of it. And I think there's a lot of, added pressure, Paige, maybe because there's so many different things. They have like these soccer clubs now and, different, football clubs and things like that where your kid can actually be better. It's like a full-time job.
Oh, it is.
You like travel.
Yeah.
You just told me later on today you're traveling to Michigan 3 hours away for another tournament all weekend long. So you get it. And so that brings up something interesting that I've been thinking about, Paige. You have kids in sports. Do you struggle with that rage on the sideline? Watching your kids, Paige. Come on. I got to know.
I know. We got to be vulnerable on this show, right? Like that's one thing. My core value is authenticity. So friends, it is time for me to confess that you don't get the pleasure of seeing soccer mom. You get to see the therapist and occasional funny fails, that I'll share. But man alive, there is something that comes out in me. And so again, the sport is soccer for us. And soccer is one of those sports where it is physical. It is a lot more physical than I even anticipated. And so I know that I have certain triggers, and it's like if kids are getting hurt or if the ref is making unbalanced calls. But the one that gets me the most is the parents on the other team, and they're yelling out things like about rules and yelling at our kids. And it's because they are truly ignorant about the rules. It's almost to the point where I'm like, every parent prior to joining a soccer league or every year, they have to watch a video that talks about what are the rules of soccer. This is what an actual foul looks like. This is, friends, again, vulnerability. I'm going to share a story.
Yes. Go there.
My kids are awesome at this sport, and they love it. And so that's why we continue to do it. I think it's also a fun, family thing. We do it as a family together. So that's why we're constantly spending hours upon hours. But this last tournament, it was a couple months ago, it got physical. Our team was physical. The other team was physical. But the other team didn't realize it was the level of physicality that soccer is required. So this one or two dad on the other team was yelling out, "Quit, this isn't football, and stop, you shouldn't do that." And I'm thinking to myself, the ref isn't even calling these fouls, but you are claiming that they are. First, number one, read the rules. But it had gotten to such a fever pitch for me that finally on this last one where my kid went in and kind of slammed into this other kid, and the parents just erupted on the other team. I stood up and I yelled, "This is soccer. This is soccer," to the point, friends, where my mother, who was present, had to pull me down, back into my seat. How humbling is that? But I just got so fired up because of the level of ignorance and they were calling my kid out. That was another thing too. I was like, nope. This is the game. Learn the game. But now I'm bringing myself down. I'm already heightened again. I'm like, breathe, where are they? We need to talk about the rules of soccer. Absolutely. And see, that's the thing that happens, right? Is we get this almost like this hormonal fight or flight instinct to start having a conflict. And it's over a game. These are kids. This isn't a big deal, but there's something about these triggers for me that, absolutely. This is why this talk is passionate for me, because I relate. I totally relate.
And when you're caught in that moment, it might be, for myself, even going off at that time, there was no way I was going to be able to stop. I mean, it was just, and then it escalates because when someone starts going back at you and blah, blah, blah. And Paige, I remember that parents on the other side. I remember we were playing this team. They were the Steelers. It seemed like they were bigger. And they were pushing, the kids around, and I'm getting fired up. And their coach was saying,
football's tough.
Their coach, he looked like Snoop Dogg. He had all the chains, and he had this hat turned to the side. He did. He looked like, I thought it was Snoop Dogg.
Wow.
It wasn't.
That's an interesting uniform.
Right, absolutely. And so this coach is going nuts. He's it's tackle, but they would nail our quarterback, and the coach is screaming. He goes, "Yeah, that's your money. That's it. You hit him like that. Hit him low if you have to." And I'm going, oh my gosh. But it's a product of what we're living in right now, Paige. It's all over the place. There's pressure to win, to perform. You're paying money for these clubs. You have to succeed. And unfortunately, with social media today, that's kind of what's going on. And then it just kind of escalates. But when you're in that moment, Paige, the parent anger kicks in. Yeah. What are some ways that you can tell our audience to rein that in? What are some practical things that they can do to stop? Talk to us.
This is something that, as you said, I'm getting ready. After we conclude this conversation, I am heading up for an entire weekend of hanging with my kiddos playing soccer. I'm wearing my soccer mom's, what is it, soccer mom era sweatshirt. I'm all in right now. Yeah. So what I feel like is so important is that we first have a conversation with ourselves is what are our values? What matters to me the most? these are the things that then set the expectations for our behavior later on. So for instance, for me, I want to cheer on my kids and their team. The parents and the other team, that's secondary, but I want to make sure that I represent my family and ultimately Jesus well by being calm and self-controlled and making sure I don't make a fool out of myself. So you have that conversation on the front end, I think is really helpful, because then it will help inform some of the behaviors that you have later on. I think the other thing is just knowing your triggers. So this across the board, this is just something that we as counselors just refer to people. If you have addictive behaviors, or if you have anger or conflict issues, what are your triggers? What sets you off? Again, mine were just kids were getting hurt and parents were ignorant, and those things combined just made me really frustrated. If I know that going in and I start seeing some of those behaviors just manifest around me, that's when I start going into, what is my body doing? And usually when we have the heightened anger, we go into fight or flight, which is why you said you just can't stop. Because once you get to that level, like your body is flushed with the hormone cortisol that makes you want to flee or fight. And so it really is hard to decompress that when you're in the throes of that. So recognizing what is your body doing after you start seeing some of those triggers could be really helpful, because now you're deep breathing. Now you're being mindful of, I'm in an environment. This is just a kid's game. Or maybe you have your partner there with you and you can be like, okay, I'm starting to feel it. I probably need to stand up or start walking or whatever it is that can help in that way. And then finally, so once you address the body, then you start addressing some of the thoughts. And the thought life is reminding yourself what matters. Like, you're representing to your kids. Like, your kids are watching you. Now, my kids didn't see me stand up and say, this is soccer, right? Praise God for that, because I asked them later and they're like, no, what are you talking about? I was like, oh, thank you, Lord. Okay. But there are times where they are watching us. They're watching us interact with other adults, the other team. How do we even talk to the opponents? They're watching. We model in so many ways, much more than our words. So just being mindful of that sometimes can cause us to be more self-controlled with our behaviors. And then I just think sometimes prayer, just praying it out. I know I said that the other day when we just played this team and all the triggers were there. And I turned to my friend and I said, man, I had just prayed to Jesus today to help me be in control of my anger. And I was like, I'm not ready for Jesus to test that. Can we go back on that? So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I can laugh at myself, but truly prayer can change things. So being mindful of letting God enter into that experience as well.
Awesome. Those are amazing tips. And we're going to have those in the show notes for you listed out so you can take those with you, put them on like a 5x7 card or whatever, put it in your pocket. When you feel in the rage coming on, pull it out, read them, and then get on your knees. Take a knee and pray. If you're just joining us and you're wondering, who's this other guy? Well, I'm Mike. I'm Paige's producer here for Embracing Your Season with Paige Clinging Apparel. It's awesome. We have new episodes released every Tuesday. And so you gotta check us out. Make sure you subscribe. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio. You can listen on the Homeward website. Homeward sponsors this show, and they do a lot of amazing things. So check out homeward.com. That's WORD. And check out all the great resources that they have as well. And as Paige mentioned, earlier, we have this show on our YouTube channel as well. So check it all out. And please do us a big favor. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you got to subscribe and then leave us a review. We want to know what we want to know how we're doing. Paige wants to make sure she's reaching you, and she wants to hear your comments as well. So please subscribe, give us a review. We love it. It's awesome. So we're talking all things. So we're talking about mom anger in sports, even though there's dad anger as well. And Paige, sports for kids is really an important deal. Again, I told you about my son, and I think about it myself. He started when he was in third grade, and now he's playing college football. And he wants to make a difference in what he's doing, using his athletic prowess, if you would. And And so I think it's really important that we help our kids in sports. It's a great growing experience. So what are some ways that we can help them? Because there's going to be times, Paige, when they struggle, when they're disappointed because they missed the winning goal or they're not getting enough playing time. And it's a real thing, Paige. It's a real thing. So what are some ways that we can, as parents, help them in sports?
Yeah. Well, and I love that you pointed out that it's like the way that they are being coached, I think, is where we can start with kids. I love the fact, and I see this with teachers, we see this with band directors, musicals, like across the board, when other adults are pouring into our kids and helping them gain a new skill, whether that's a physical or whether that's a talent, a gifting that they're just growing in. But it's another adult in their life that is coaching them. I love that for our kids. And it doesn't mean that just because they're a coach makes them a good coach. That's also a learning experience. I know that we've had a couple of coaches throughout, well, even in my own, I was a volleyball player. So even in my own volleyball career, they weren't always the best. But again, it taught us, me and then my kids, like, you still got to respect adults. You still have to follow through the directives. Like, you still can question what is the directive and whether or not that's a good suggestion, but they're an adult speaking into your life. But then on the flip side, this can also be a trusted adult, someone that our kids can go to when maybe they're experiencing a season where it's really rough and they don't feel like they can come to parents. And then also just being teachable. That's the other thing about coaching is like our kids have to learn to be teachable and to grow. And that means that they're going to fail often. I mean, failure is part of success, right? You can't succeed just right out of the gate. You have to fail and make mistakes a few times. Coaches are so good at pointing those things out so our kids can grow. It's called the growth mindset, into that mentality that it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. The other aspect of just helping our kids in this season is, I think you even mentioned it, about disappointment. My kiddo, my oldest one, my son in soccer, like, he takes it so personally when he doesn't do a good pass or if he misses a goal. And you could see him, he drops his head during the game, and then that affects the rest of the team because he's a leader on the team. So we've had conversations afterwards about how can I support you? How can I encourage you in that moment? And, you know, the kiddo was just like, you know, Mom, I just know it's something that I just have to deal with, that I know that I need to pull my head up and I just need to just do better next time, that it's not the end of the world. And I thought, that's such a good mentality, man. You know, let me support you if I can. But the reality is he's learning that disappointment isn't the end of the world, that it's going to happen. I think the other elements, there's a couple more, is just like, there's going to be injustice. There's a sense of injustice sometimes in sports. There's going to be kids who are going to trip or hit low or, you know, whatever it is, out of just being mean or just trying to get the objective, the goal or the point or whatever it is. And our kids are going to want to fight back against that. Well, again, life lesson. They can't always fight against that because it's usually the second hit that gets called by the ref, right? And gets the yellow flag or the foul or, you know, taken out of the game. We're helping our kids build resilience in the fact that injustice happens, but what are you going to do about it? What is your moral character? How are you going to handle it? Those are great conversations to have with kids, and sports provides that. And then I also think, particularly with the refs, and I know that I do this too sometimes when I get frustrated with some of the calls, is that we just have to believe the best in them. Do refs really come out and think, I'm going to call all these really awful calls on this team just because I don't like their jersey?
Paige, yes, they do.
You think it happens?
They do, yes.
Okay, so obviously we need to go and look up the statistics and go talk to a bunch of refs and see if this is reality. But on the flip side, if it is not the case, we need to believe the best in people. And what a great way to start that life lesson is like, this ref, he could have made a mistake. He may have felt bad that he made that call because he realized after the fact it probably wasn't the right call. But again, we have to believe his heart was good. His intention is good. He's not trying to burden us or take away our advantage just because he doesn't like us. That again translates to friendships, to even partners in the future, believing the best in people. So think of all the life lessons that we can model first off for our kids, but then also talk through and help them navigate. Because there's situations every single time This isn't a occasional conversation. It's
Yeah.
every time there's a practice,
It's life.
every time there's a game, there is a life lesson that
It
we
is
can
a
help our
life
kids
lesson.
with. And that to me is, it's so powerful.
Why do I feel like right now, Paige, I'm sitting on a couch and like lying on it, and then you got the clipboard out and you just gave me a free therapy session because
You know,
think
Mike,
there's some-
actually, I did. Your wife called me about the incident that happened in third grade, and
Paige.
so this is the conversation that needed to happen, however many years ago. But it's happening now. So this was your free counseling session, thanks to your wife.
Paige,
Yeah, right.
I feel the healing going through my body as we speak.
Yes, good.
Okay, Paige,
I'm sure
as
you
we
still
wa-
pull it out though. Your son's in sophomore, still in football. Like he's still doing this, so I'm sure you still have some struggle areas as well.
I've got a few things to say this coming fall season, Paige, and I'll keep you up to date. But you know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to write all those tips down on my 5x7 index card and put it in my back of my
Perfect.
pocket. And that would be my go-to because
There you go.
I'm going there. Okay, Paige, we're winding
Yep.
things down. And I want to go in the garage with you and get into our DeLorean, okay? Because we're going back to the future. Michael J. Fox
Okay,
is
I was
there.
like, that's
Doc
a really old reference. Yep,
it's,
I'm with you
it's
now.
An old,
Back to
it's
the
an
future.
old reference. Back to the Future. Doc Brown is driving Michael J. Fox to the front seat, and in that car, I don't think there's a whole bunch of room, but we're going to put you in the back seat, okay? And we're going to go
Okay.
back in time, and you are 13, 14-year-old Paige, and you're playing volleyball. If you can go back in time and think about a couple of those things that you remember, or maybe even learned. What are those things that may have helped you now as a parent as you navigate this whole sports, as you navigate this whole sporting life that you have with your kids now? What are a couple things that you can pull from your volleyball days, Paige, and
Yeah.
use them now for positivity, if you would?
Yeah, so the first one that actually comes to mind is just my worth is not equated by my performance. That's a lie that I learned from a young age. I don't know where it came from, but like in order to be valuable to people around me, especially like adults, I had to perform. So whether that's like in school or if that's with the volleyball, it felt like I had to be good. So every time that I made a mistake, it was a very personal, it was very real, and it was really hard to have grace for myself. And so I think
tough.
that would be the first thing that I would say, be like, girl, your performance, it is good to want to be good at whatever you're doing, but that does not equate your value. Like you are priceless. You have great purpose. Like God has designed you uniquely. And just having those truth bombs just poured over me over and again, I think that really could have actually prevented some of the choices that I ended up making because I didn't feel like I was a very valuable person. So that would definitely be one of the first one. I also would say just building community. Like kids take it for granted how easy it is to make friends when you're in the middle of a sports team, a league, or in school. When you're an adult, it's not as easy to find people of like-mindedness and to have commonality. And so I would probably say, like, take advantage of those moments where you have opportunities to build friendships and then really invest in them. Not just like, I'm going to hang out with you during practice in a game, but like, hey, let's play, for guys, for instance, let's play video games online together. So even though we're not in the same location, like we can still talk. And for girls, let's go out and get, I don't know what girls do anymore, I guess. Just like go, well, my girls, I guess, they go to Starbucks or they go pick up French fries from McDonald's and drive around, right? Like building those experiences outside of the sporting events, because that builds community and we're made for community. So those are probably the two things that I would think were very valuable for me back in that time.
That's so awesome, Paige, and really touching to me because I remember being a young baseball player, and I could still remember the time I struck out 4 times, and I felt like, I let so many people down. I could even remember a time in my life when I was 13 years old, Paige. I pretty much grew up without my dad. He left when I was 6 years old, but I went on to the field, and I was warming up, and I looked up in the stands, and there was my dad, who maybe came to a handful of my games in my life, and I had like the best baseball game in my life. So I guess
Wow.
it was amazing. I had like a couple of doubles. It was just unbelievable. And I really wanted to shine for my dad. And I guess as we close out today, my own thoughts, I'm not a professional or whatever, but I can say this. Our kids want to do the best they can, and they want to impress you, parents. And so if they don't, and so if they're not doing so hot, they miss a goal, they miss a ground ball, they strike out 4 times, they miss the winning field goal, don't come down on them. Just encourage them. Because like Paige says, that doesn't define who they are. That doesn't. And you have a real opportunity to speak into their life, some real positive messages that they can take and use later on in life. You can learn some real good stuff here. So I just encourage you to go root for your kids, have the best time. Try not to go crazy like Paige and I have done. It will happen, but have some grace for yourself. You love your kids and you want them to succeed. Have some grace for yourself. But so those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, thanks for sharing that. And I just, absolutely affirm everything you said. Like, we have our kids little for a little bit, but the words that we are speaking over them, the amount of time that we are spending with them is so invaluable to their development and who they become. So take advantage. Take advantage of all this time and make sure that you remember your kids are watching. So be mindful of your behavior, be mindful of your words, and make sure that you are just loving your family well. Well, friends, thanks so much for joining me on another episode of Embracing Your Season. This was such a fun topic. Again, it's something that I can relate to, so I'm hoping that you can as well. But I would love to hear more. Maybe you have ideas of other topics you would like us to discuss. You can always email me at pageklingandpeel@gmail.com. Of course, new episodes are released every Tuesday. So from guests to solo topics to tons of fun conversations that we're having here at Embracing Your Season, you don't want to miss an episode. So please subscribe. We would love for you to find us on all the platforms, and you can find us on the Homeward YouTube channel as well. So again, thanks for joining us today. We will see you next week on another episode of Embracing Your Season.